إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد وقال تعالى في مقام آخر إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون وقال النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدومها وإن قل وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدومها وإن قل أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام صدق الله المولان العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Respected brothers and elders, as you and I very well know that Allah Rabbul Izzat has created man exclusively for his worship, and one would only be deserving of the honorable title of being referred to as the true worshipper of Allah if his entire life is governed by Allah's obedience till death. We very well know that this is the reason why Allah has created us. But to deserve or to become deserving of this honorable title that this man is the true worshipper of Allah, like in anything and everything, you would only call that person a mechanic whose daily occupation and profession is to fix cars. But that person who only gets under his car when he has a problem, no man will call him a mechanic. A tailor will be that person whose daily work is to sew and knit and do. That person will be called a tailor. Likewise, only that person will be deserving of the honorable title of being the worshipper of Allah, who governs his entire life in the obedience of Allah. Unfortunately, one of the greatest of dilemmas that the ummah today is facing, you and I have restricted the concept of obedience to Allah with occasions and venues. And unfortunately, this is how we are presenting and reflecting deen to our children, as a continuation from our last week's talk. So the child is told in advance that Ramadan is coming, you prepare, in Ramadan you obey Allah. A person goes to Mecca and Medina, now restricting ibadat to the concept of a venue. That now as long as we are here, I know I must perform my salah, I will dress as a Muslim, I will read Quran. Comes an occasion of a janazah in the family, restricting ibadat to situations, to conditions, to venues, to occasions. Such a person has worshipped Allah to a certain extent, but he has not done justice, or he will not become deserving of the true and the honorable title of being the servant of Allah. The ayat karima that I recited before you, Allah speaks about those that maintain consistency in their amal, and regardless of the situations and the conditions that come. Just as Allah is the creator of man, Allah is equally the creator of the conditions that surround man. So conditions will change. At times it will be conducive to obey Allah, and at times it will not be conducive to obey Allah. At times Ramadan will be short, the fasting will be short, the salah will be easy. At times Fajr will be late, at times Fajr will be early. The one that will only come for Fajr when it is late, he hasn't worshipped Allah. The one that will only fast when it is winter, he has not understood the spirit of fasting. In fact, if I may perhaps add from a different angle, today being the last Friday of the month of Shawwal, and if there is any resemblance or if there is any continuation of the practices of Ramadan, then unfortunately for some it terminates at the very ending of Ramadan. For others it continues for the next month, and that is the month of Shawwal, and it ends here. We will now be entering into the next month. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam on one occasion advising his Sahaba, specifically draws his attention and he tells, oh my Sahabi, addressing Abdullah ibn Umar, Ya Abdullah, la takum mithla fulanin, kana yaqumu min al-layl, fataraka qiyam al-layl. Oh Abdullah ibn Umar, my advice to you is, whenever you start any action, don't ever leave that good action until death overpowers you. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam exclusively told him that do not be like so and so, without mentioning that person's name, that he used to stand up and he used to perform tahajjud namaz. And then somehow he decided and he terminated this relation which he had developed with Allah. And I'm mentioning this specifically because in this Ramadan we had a situation, and in the Ramadan to come it will be more difficult. For verily, the very ending of Ramadan will be the commencing of our festive season. And already in this Ramadan we've seen the unfortunate drastic changes that spirit that was with great effort developed and maintained in Ramadan, and a man came closer to Allah. The situation became very challenging because his last Jummah and his last Ramadan was now part of his holiday. So it was in fact, unfortunately, the notion that was created as though some people were only waiting for Ramadan to lapse so that they can go and once again go back into the evil practices. What the Ramadan that is to come in will be even more greater. The ending of Ramadan will signal the commencement of the holiday season. Brothers, for how long will this be the notion of ibadat? That ibadat, you worship Allah in Ramadan, you worship Allah in Makkah, you worship Allah on the occasion of Jannah. How long will be this our concept and our understanding of ibadat? So, oh Abdullah ibn Umar, don't be like so and so, but rather maintain consistency. Sayyidatuna Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, tell us something which Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did. Aisha radiallahu anha says there was nothing very unusual about his practices. However, when he started one action, he would never ever leave that action until death overpowered him. The verse of the Quran, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, and worship your Lord continuously, perpetually, under all conditions and circumstances. Then only are you deserving of having the honorable title of worshipping Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. We mentioned the incident of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that when conditions mounted upon him at the demise of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, at this crucial juncture, it was now time to see how he was going to conduct himself, where it was so difficult that one side the demise of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which I mentioned was perhaps the greatest calamity or catastrophe that this ummah has witnessed in human history. The separation of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to such an extent that when Jibreel came and the angel of death came, and then angel of death asks permission to come and take the soul of Nabi alayhi salam, the first person for whom permission was asked, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says, what will happen to my ummah? Then revelation comes down that Allah will take care of your ummah. Nabi alayhi salam gives the angel of death permission that now you can take out my soul. After the soul of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam is taken out, at this juncture, Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam says, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, since this is your last day on this earth, this is also my last day on the earth. I no longer will now descend with revelation. That is why Ayman radiallahu anha, Nabi alayhi salam used to go and visit her. After the demise of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Sahaba said, let us try and keep up the practices of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. And this should be the duty of children after the demise of their parents, whatever the noble qualities of the parents were. So they went to the house of Ayman radiallahu anha. They sat by her. She was crying and tearing. They asked her, what makes you cry so much? She says, we all equally share the grief and the separation of Nabi alayhi salam. But there's one additional grief that I'm experiencing and you haven't understood. And that is, after the demise of every Nabi, there was always consolement that prophets were coming in succession. So the relation between the bondsman and Allah was intact via revelation. Jibreel would come and via the Nabi, the message of the time was conveyed. But don't you realize, at the demise of Nabi alayhi salam, this is now the termination of the doors of revelation till the day of Qiyamah. This bond in this relation that the humankind and the human race and the human nation had with Allah has terminated. So at this crucial juncture, at the demise of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, situations will change and fluctuate. A man is obeying Allah. As I mentioned, obedience of Allah will only be if our entire life in every situation, a man is so punctual in the obedience of Allah, and in comes a wedding in the family. Unfortunately, at this juncture, all the commandments of Allah are neglected. All the commandments of Allah are shunned one side, and regard is given to the joy of anyone and everyone at the cost of earning the displeasure of Allah. To please the wife, I'm having a big thing. To please the in-laws, we are not having separate accommodation. To please my son-in-law, we will have it in this hall. To please my daughter-in-law, this will happen. Brothers, has the time not come that we now start considering Allah's pleasure in our matters? So what is it? That one, Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha said, when Nabi alayhi salam started in action, then that action would remain with him until death overpowered him. And this is the focus on which I've been speaking last week, and I want to make mention of all this week as well.